You're watching Cable 2.
I'm Leah Crowley, and I have the pleasure of serving as chair of this committee. Thank you so much for attending today, and I want to start off with an apology for the last minute reschedule. We had some issues with the meeting not being posted in time to meet the open meetings law. It has to be done 48 hours ahead, and when we realized this, it was already Tuesday afternoon. So again, I apologize. I know many of you are busy people and have other things going on other than this committee in your life. So I regret that we had to do that, and we'll make sure going forward that we have the meeting and the agenda posted in time so that we won't be in violation of any laws. I'd also like to thank Andy Bramer, board member Bramer, for leading this committee since its inception, and hope to continue the work that she started and keep moving our district forward in this area of school choice and just trying to position our students to be the most successful that they can. So thank you, board member Bramer. With that, we're going to somebody who had, Lisa, if you're on this call, if you could establish that we have a quorum. I'm not sure the total number of people on this committee. Is it a quorum just of board members, or is it a quorum of the entire committee?
It's a quorum of the committee, Ms. Crowley, and
okay, thank you.
If you'd like, the members of the choice committee are obviously Leah Crowley is the chair, Andrea Bramer, Dana Jones, and Marilyn Parker.
Right.
And
Marilyn Parker's having trouble connecting. I'm going to call her in.
It looks like Ms. Jones is present on the call. Ms. Bramer is present. And I think Ms. Lisa is trying to get Ms. Parker.
And I know Ms. Jones has a previous commitment that she might have to leave this meeting early because of the rescheduling. So I don't know if that will affect.
I have to leave. I've got to jump out at 3:30. I have a 3:30, and then I have a 4:20. I'm hoping I can just kind of maybe bounce back and forth because, of course, they're all virtual.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us while you could. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And so we do have a quorum of the committee that's present.
Okay, great. So then we'll move forward with our discussion item. And the title of this meeting, the middle school redistricting recommendations. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Atashbar.
Yes, good afternoon, Committee Chair Crowley, committee members, board members, and Ms. McManus. I'm going to go ahead and share with you where we are right now in the presentation as far as what was accomplished after the community feedback for the middle school redistricting. I'll share my screen. Just give me 1 second. Can you all see my screen by any chance?
Not yet.
Okay, I apologize. Let me see if I can do that again.
Okay, now we can see the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So the first one I'm going to go over is Louisville Middle School redistricting. Basically, you've seen these pictures. This is where the construction, some of the pictures of the construction. So we had presented two options for Louisville with different district goals, basically. This first one, option one, was going to be using basically balancing utilization, which meant optimizing the amount of students and capacity of the school, maximizing students' proximity to school, making sure students don't have to travel too far to get to school, and then of course respecting neighborhoods, making sure we can keep the neighborhoods together as much as possible there. So option 2 was a little bit different. The main objective here was to have a clean elementary school to middle school feeder pattern. Again, it would maximize students' proximity to schools, allow them to be close to their school, and then respecting neighborhoods was also part of this. But the main difference was the feeder pattern, a cleaner feeder pattern from elementary to middle school. So we had about 66 responses on the community feedback form that was available. About 54% liked that the Louisville Middle School's first year, the school will not be part of the choice program, meaning that only students that were residential would get to attend. About 71.4% liked that for next year we would assign 6th to 8th graders and expect them to attend Louisville Middle School. About 69% chose option 2. Which was the one that had the clean elementary to middle school feeder pattern. And so basically our recommendation at this point, up to discussion, would be to go with option 2, with the clean feeder pattern for elementary to middle school, allow only residential students to attend for the 21-22 school year and not have them as part of the choice program. With that said, bring them into the choice program for the 22-23 school year. Assigns students grades 6 to 8 that are residential to Louisville and are not attending another school, obviously, as part of their magnets and things like that. Those students would continue attending those schools, but the students that are attending the areas that are being affected and attending other schools residentially would be now assigned to Louisville. For the 21-22 school year, and then enter Louisville into the choice zone program for the 22-23 school year. Next, we're going to go to the Haines Middle School redistricting. And so the proposal was to send the residential Haines students that are currently traveling across the county to go to Haines, assign them back in their geographic area to Mineral Springs Middle School, which had the capacity. So basically the goal that we're trying to achieve here is to minimize students' travel distance to the schools and then respecting neighborhoods, in relation to the proximity to the schools. All right, so we only had about 3 responses on that one. 2 of them said they would like to remain at Haines, and 1 of them said they would go to Mineral Springs Middle School. And so our recommendation is to reassign residential Haines students to Mineral Springs Middle School for next year, assigning grades 6 through 8 for the 21-22 school year, with the option to stay at Haines via the magnet application if they want to finish out, especially rising 8th graders want to finish out at Haines. And then this would still keep the Haines residential students in the Northwest Zone for choice, which is a popular choice for them in their zone. So the area that you see here at the basically bottom, which is the current Haines residential area, would still be in the Northwest Zone, and they will still be able to choose Northwest as one of their choices. All right, and then I'm going to go to Philo Hill Middle School redistricting proposal that we did. We had initially said that we were going to split that area up. One that was going to be the old Philo and then the old Hill sites. We were going to split those back up. We had merged those years ago, and we were proposing that the students in the Philo Hill during renovation reconstruction would be reassigned to Winston-Salem Preparatory Academy. And then we were going to, because we are reassigning the Haines residential students back in their geographic area, we were going to allow those students that live around the Haines on the Hill site to have a new residential area around the Haines Middle School there. So once we got the community feedback, we had about 80 responses, about 39 were staff, parent caregivers were about 16, and 22 students and 3 other. So we had asked them to rank, and we had kind of given them some options there. The one that got the highest score on the ranking was the Keep Philo Hill open during the 23 months construction project and reopened with the current school model. But the question that we asked about what should be the school model after renovation, we've given some options there as an arts magnet school, which is what we had proposed to begin with, a vocational magnet school, a non-magnet school, and regardless of the school model, if parents were still going to be sending their children to Philo Hill Middle School. So the one that got the highest, again, score, weighted average there was the vocational magnet school. So after that, we got together staff here just to see how that, what kind of options we would have there for that. And so we wanted to explain a little bit more about the arts magnet piece of it, which we had been working hard already on, trying to do the music production, which students will learn studio skills to create and record grooves, beats, and power songs, using today's top digital and audio workstations, band and chorus and orchestra, theater, dance, and visual arts. Basically, we're all going to be components of that. And we just wanted to kind of put more information in there as part of this presentation, that there was a component of learning that trade, basically, with the production piece and the visual arts part of it there too. So we also did look at CTE, what we call vocational programs in middle schools, and it's a little, based on our current course offerings, typically most of the vocational hands-on courses are high school courses. In middle school, what we do have is some of the offerings that we have. We put them on here, computer skills and family and consumer sciences, and then technology, design, and innovation are part of some of those programs. So we just wanted to kind of list those out by grade level for this presentation. All right, so our recommendation based on the community feedback, for the school renovation and construction, complete the construction with the students on campus rather than sending them to Winston-Salem Preparatory Academy. And we still want to do the Haines students on the hillside, give those students that live around that area, that residential school, basically, to be able to attend. And of course, they'll still be a part of the Southeast zone with Southeast and East Forsyth as their other choices in their zone. So as far as the school model goes, based on the feedback, we just wanted to make sure we were able to have more time and gather a more robust survey to the community as far as what would be the best programming there. So we're working with teachers and instructional staff to gather a list of possible programs that can be offered in middle school, a combination of the arts and vocational and other things that we can kind of gather together, sort of a list that we can survey the community with, and then really be able to take time, obviously with the COVID situation right now, to be able to do an electronic survey as a sample, and then if we don't get anything back, really hit the ground and survey the community as far as what type of programming would best serve them, and then propose programming based on those results of the survey, so we have some good data there. So. All right, and that kind of concludes my presentation. Any questions from me, please?
Thank you so much, Homan. I'm looking at the screen now just to see if there are any hands up. But one question I have is, Haines is known as, just a really strong magnet school in our district. And they've, consistently had 120 to 160 students each year go to that school as a magnet student. How will this affect their magnet numbers?
Yes, ma'am. So what we did was what we do have right now is trends. So basically we sort of part of, and I apologize, the gentleman, Thomas Dudley from Orid, they just had a baby. So I reached out and congratulated him. So he's out on leave, so he wasn't able to be here. But I told him I would represent him because I work with him so closely on the data, and then I would gather any feedback for him and pass it along shortly after the meeting. But basically, when we looked at the student data, we got the same amount of students that we're moving up back to the residential schools, to Mineral Springs, the residential Haines students. We're expecting the same amount of students residentially around Hill to end up attending Haines. I can tell you just number-wise, as a matter of numbers, just looking at, for example, just rising sixth graders, in the current Haines area, there are actually about 50 kids more residentially to Haines right now, as it is, than there would be on the hillside that we're proposing to assign to Haines. The majority of those students, traditionally, as trends go, will choice to Southeast and East Forsyth. We know that, and they have built communities there. We have a lot of siblings that are going to follow through. So we're going to really work with that community to make sure those students are going to receive their choices, and so we can still allow for the Haines students to attend there as a magnet school. We're not seeing any impact right now in the numbers where it would decrease any of the Haines magnet students that are able to attend there. And of course, the next step here, as it was passed in the bond, is going to be Smith Farm. So this is going to be right now a temporary thing because we really need the seats there. There's about 1,800 students that live residentially between Philo and Hill. So there's a lot of students, but again, with trends, they've choiced out and built communities in one side to Flat Rock and Clemens, on the other side to Southeast and East Forsyth. And we're going to, based on those trends, we're not seeing any amount of students deciding to go to one school or another. So we're just kind of following those trends. But then again, once Smith Farm comes in, we're going to do some redistricting there, and that's going to change that area altogether. So right now we need the seats, and we want to make sure that those students, especially that are around Haines, have a residential school to go to. And then also you'll decrease some of the students at Philo Hill, for the next steps as far as renovation, having them on campus, and then if you're going to do a countywide magnet, to be able to have that balancing of having seats available in a countywide magnet for diversity and countywide participation in the magnet programs. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you. I just know that, Haines is already kind of tight. All sixth grade are already in mobile units. It's, just say, despite the moves and the location change thing with it, it still is an incredibly successful magnet program, and I just want to make sure we're not going to harm that. But I'm excited about exposing a different set of kids to great schools, so I just want to make sure the right number.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. And we're looking at numbers all the time, so we're going to work with the community to make sure everybody's aware of what's happening after, of course, the board approves whichever plan we're going to go through with. We're going to really hit the ground running and communicate directly with those parents that are going to be affected and what their options are to ensure that we got the correct numbers at all times. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Board Member Jones, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So just a couple of questions. So for the programming piece for Philo Hill, what's the kind of the timeline for that? I know, and as far as feedback along with the construction timeline, I'm thinking that a arts magnet school on the inside would look much more like a Diggs Latham does with dance studios and things like that. But if it were to be more of a vocational school, that those types of things would need to be calculated in. So what's the timeline with that?
Yes, ma'am. I can speak a little bit to that, and then I know we got other folks about the construction pieces if they want to add anything to it. So as we got the community feedback and we got together, again, on a middle school vocational CTE type of programming, we're very limited to what we can offer versus the high school vocational that we have, for example, right now. And there are some components within the arts that would align with both objectives. So, such as the, the production piece with the music and things like that. So we're hitting the ground running. We already got folks working on the survey piece of it, and just we're working with teachers and instructional staff to try to get pinpoint exactly how that's going to look. So the timeline, basically, here shortly, we're going to be able to have some questions out, of course, to filter through and make sure we got the right questions. And then we know who the students are, so we'll be able to hit the survey as soon as we have finalized the questions. So this is not going to be a long-term thing, it's going to be a short-term thing. We haven't quite set a calendar for it, but we'll definitely share that as soon as the main thing was the programming. Let's make sure we got the right answers and questions around the programming. So.
Is our limitation, Homan, is that at the state level that there are not, I would say back in the 80s when I attended high school in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, we had hands-on, shop class, and I'm sure it might have had a different term, but there were different things that you could do hands-on to get some idea, and every school was set up that way. Do we not have, and I don't know if Bruce is on the call, if we are just limited with the course offerings, because I believe that a vocational based, and when I think of vocation, I think a blend of what you're saying, Homan, is part of that mixing with music and the production piece. I think you have IT things that are also vocational, and then I think that we tend to have some of that exploration of the traditional vocational classes. I'm just wondering why the district would want to look at more of a total arts magnet when I believe we have an arts magnet that we're not completely using and utilizing, and that's at Mineral Springs. I mean, they have a wonderful auditorium there and many amenities that were built into the school. Maybe they need to be enhanced, but I'm just concerned why we would kind of duplicate that somewhere else, because I think if you would do that, in my mind, putting it in a brand new school, you're probably going to hurt the magnet that's over at Mineral Springs. So those are just some, that didn't have to be answered on this call today, but things that I'm concerned about when the programming of that. And then the other thing is, are we looking at, did I hear or do I remember that Smith Farm Middle may not be built there off Motsinger Road, and we may need to look at a different site?
Excuse me, ma'am. Yeah, I don't know if Mr. Walker's on the call, and he can maybe speak to that piece of it.
And what would that do to numbers or shifting? Would that cause another shift for families in this particular area?
Either way, the school will need to be in the same geographic area, just because that's where we needed the seats for sure, and especially to help with Southeast. Everybody knows how many modulars they have there. So, and then the growth that's happening in that area. So I can speak to that it's still going to have to be in the same geographic area. Now, if the site for some reason does change, it's still going to affect the same area. Yes, ma'am. So I can speak to that, and I don't know if anybody else wants to speak to the other piece of it.
Yeah, Chairwoman Jones, this is Daryl. We have had some discussions about looking for another parcel of land within that zone, mainly due to the fact that when we purchased that property, we didn't really have a vibrant middle school athletic program. Yeah. And so it's gonna, if we build a school there, we will probably have to go off campus for those activities. And we need to make that decision, but we are entertaining some other options at this time. And what that would mean is we would probably sell that parcel or ask to surplus that property of land and then buy another piece. We do have some developers in that area that are interested if we were to go that route.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I think the board is on. So, well, do you have any opportunities, jump in? We also additionally, who aren't on the specific committee, Deanna Kaplan's on the call, Elizabeth Mottinger's on the call, and Chair Woodbury is the call. So, well, clearly. I think there are no. Okay, I'm sorry, I heard somebody there. All right, so then that's all. Let's move on to action, and that is to consider the approval.
This is Elizabeth.
Yes.
I just put up my hand, I'm sorry. The one question I really have kind of looking at all of these is that it looks like we are basically keeping the exact same choice program that's been in place since the early 1990s without any real consideration of, do we want to keep that program in place? So if we keep reassigning students really based on what we're already doing, what we're going to keep having is more of exactly what we have. And my question is there any desire for the board to discuss this and really say, is the choice program that was picked in the 1990s, so almost 30 years ago, the thing we want to keep replicating? Because if you choose school by school, it's always going to look like, well, it's obvious you should do that. And so that's just my question, and it's a philosophical one.
Okay. Is there anybody who has an opinion they'd like to share on that?
I would like to add that I would like to challenge that as a thought, because I do think that so much of what looks like natural lines are really a replication of redlining lines, which was based on keeping segregation in place. And I just know that when something doesn't come up for 30 years, if you rush through it, you're going to replicate it.
I think this is using the ORAD model, and that corporate strategies is going to have a different approach, maybe?
I'm sorry. I was talking. Sorry, I couldn't see, but I was looking at, I got Jay and Gregory hand up. Gregory.
Before they talk, Board Member Crowley, your voice is coming out very inconsistent. I don't know if, Kevin, do you think if she turns her camera off, we'll hear her better, maybe?
Okay, I'll try that. Is that better?
Yeah. All right, talk now.
Is it better now?
Maybe a tad bit.
Sorry.
Keep going, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you have a place, Leah, in your house where you have better internet?
Yeah,
stronger
actually,
signal?
it's usually here where I've had it jumped up, but maybe I can go to another spot. Okay, and with that, how about if we let Ms. Gregory have her chance to speak while I move?
Hi, yeah, thank you so much. I also had a number of questions and concerns, kind of actually in the vein of that board member Motzinger started. And so one of those was, I was wondering about the redistricting recommendations, or the student assignment recommendations that are going to be coming from the consultants and from the Forsyth Future Survey. And I was just a little concerned about moving forward with middle school redistricting without having considered the larger issue of student assignment. It sounds like there's a clear desire to at least discuss and reevaluate and most likely in change it in some ways. And so that was one concern. The other is I was interested to know if there's been any metrics considered to guide student assignment based on data and research, not just from Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, as well as more broadly about the types of learning communities that support student achievement. So I think I'm not, a super expert in this area, but have tried to educate myself, and I believe there's very strong research showing the benefits of socioeconomic and racial integration for all students, and especially for lower income students and students of color. And so I'm just concerned that there doesn't seem to be any metrics here that would guide student assignment toward those types of learning communities. Can anyone speak to that, or is there a possibility of incorporating that in these decisions? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll defer to Homon, but I did want to say it first, if you can hear me okay now. I did move. I don't know if this is any better. The driving factor, and Homon, jump in if I'm wrong here, but the driving factor in addressing this the way we have now is the deadline for student assignment for the school choice coming up, and the fact that the new Louisville school is coming online in the fall. So we are definitely under a time pressure to get that part resolved. And that's why we didn't look at the entire school system for school choice. We only focused on middle school for this one because of that deadline. And then as far as the metrics go, the board was surveyed on it was basically, prioritized. There were a list of items that we could prioritize. So there was a consensus there that drove student assignment based on what those priorities were.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll add a little bit to that, if you don't mind. We're talking about a couple of different things that go hand in hand, but we're on just looking at our assignment plan all, as a whole, and making changes there. We've started that work since the committee was created. We have consultants. First, we're gonna in February, we're going to get the results of the student assignment survey just to see what Forsyth County sees our assignment and where they wanted it to be. We're got the cooperative strategies for work coming to us in March, and they're going to be looking at how to best outfit and how a magnet school should look like, and how to best outfit that, and then what type of programming would be beneficial to our county based on data that they're researching. So those things are in the work. I can tell you an unfortunate thing here, and not minimizing the unfortunate thing overall, but COVID really pushed us back a little bit from last year. And as Ms. Crowley said, there's Louisville Middle School was part of the bond. We sort of got to open the middle school. It's going to be completed this summer, so we got to sort of start that up in August. So we just have to kind of get a school that's completed open. The Haines residential students, reassigning them back to the residential school was something that was just needed. Having those students travel so far from their neighborhoods, folks that were basically having to catch a bus, for example, if something happened to their child, because they, needed to travel all the way to pick their child up, things like that. We were trying to correct that. So those are the things there. And of course, Philo Hill, the renovation was coming up, and that is scheduled. So those are things we're just trying to get done for the fall. And we included those, but absolutely we're looking at the entire thing. That has been part of our plan all along, and that's why the Choice Committee wanted the survey out there just to see what Forsyth County sees. So we have data around that, and then, we got consultants looking at our magnets programs and how that needs to be addressed. And then, so there's going to be plenty more coming to the Choice Committee. Unfortunately, for next August, I can tell you, and you've seen the numbers, especially if you were on the choice committee from the beginning. I presented them. Cooperative Strategies presented the same numbers at one of their first presentations. But we got anywhere between 40 and 60% of our middle school students, 40 to 46% of our middle school students do not attend a residential school. So we are in a system that is operating at that level. And, to make changes to that system, it's going to require some time. I'm not talking 6 years, but I'm talking, it's going to require a lot of conversation. Obviously, we have a lot of students that are not going to the residential school. So we've had a lot of movement. And to make changes to that movement, of course, we need a lot of data. As the committee person, I apologize, I forgot the name, but mentioned, we got to look at a lot of different things, and we're in the works. And again, unfortunately, the COVID situation pushed us back from last spring into this fall. So now we're on a deadline to get these projects at least started for August. I hope that
Okay, thank you, Homan. All right, and it looks like Eunice Campbell has her hand raised.
Thank you. So when it comes to the Louisville school, the option 2, only residential students for the upcoming year, and then enter the choice, is there any particular reason why it can't just be choice to in the 2021-22 year? It just seems like to me that the longer you wait, it'll become more full with residential students, and then people who may want to make that their choice, it will limit the ability for them to go to that school. And when you move, and when it comes to Haines, if you move the residential kids to Mineral Springs, Haines offer accelerated classes in math and reading. Is that something that's also going to follow those kids, that opportunity for those accelerated classes? And follow Hill, the arts magnet, and the other option, which are either one is good, but is the funding there to fund an arts magnet school so that it's truly an arts? And I have to agree with Ms. Jones. If you have that funding, then just put it into Mineral Springs and make the other one a vocational magnet school. Seems to be more practical, but you have to fund it as well. So before we make that decision, are we sure we have the funding to make it a true vocational magnet school?
Okay, there's a lot of questions in there. So let's take the first one about why limit residential for first year. I'll defer to Homan.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. So part of the reason for that was there's a lot of new development in that area, and we wanted to make sure that there was going to be, we didn't want to overwhelm the school right from the first year. There was we're going to enter it back into the choice program, but all along we sort of are under the basically building about 20% capacity into Louisville Middle School for choice. But because of all the new development that was happening in the area, the decision was to 1 year allow for that residential to come in, especially since we're going grades 6 to 8, just to make sure that we're not overwhelming it right off to where we got to possibly move modulars and something in there for the second year. But we are going to be within the 20% of the capacity. So when it does enter into choice, we can allow for that that movement there. And again, I know we're looking at all our assignment all in general anyway, so we'll have to consider all the decisions that are coming by the time we get to that for sure. So, but I hope that answers the question.
Okay, and I'm not sure, is Nicolette on the call? I was thinking Ms. Grant might be able to answer the question about would accelerated classes be offered at Mineral Springs that are offered at Haines now? I know for the accelerated classes at Haines, you have to test into the AIG program, and I don't know that it's open to anybody at the school to take the accelerated, the skip a year in math and accelerated ELA.
Yes, I am on the call. So
Okay.
One of the things that we are doing within our advanced learning department is looking for ways to lift more students and support more students throughout the K-5 grades. Hopefully with that effort, we may have more students who will qualify for those advanced classes. And if that is the case, then that is something we can look at expanding to other sites. We have not specifically talked about that, so I can't promise that that is what we will do. But I know that we are trying, as part of our strategic plan, to really provide access for more students to more rigorous coursework and trying to provide the supports needed to help students to be able to achieve that. So I will take that specific question back to the group, but just know that that is a goal of ours to provide more options for students.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Board Member Crowley, I just wanted to point one thing out for students that are already there that are at Haines, that they will have an option to stay through application. Can you talk to that instead of leaving to go to the residential if they're already there and they want to stay? Can you talk to that?
Yes, ma'am. So that was part of it. Obviously, we do not want to penalize any student that is, that's not what this is about. So yeah, if a student is at Haines, going, for example, to 8th grade, they got friends there that are not going with them, and they want to stay there, they're more than welcome to apply. And the reason we're making the application is just to find the intent of the parents, that's what they want to do, so we can set up the correct allotments and things like that. So, the application is available to those students during that period. We're going to communicate directly with the students that are going to be affected and spell out exactly what their options are, and that's going to be one of the options that they have. So yes, if they're in a class, if they're with their friends, if they're in a class and they want to continue there, we're going to allow that to happen. Yes.
Okay, and then her final question, I think, was about fully funding magnets. And, I know this is an issue across the district. So many of our magnets started off as a national award winner where they got grant money, and then when that money runs out, it's kind of up to the district to allocate funds for it, but it seems like it falls more on PTAs to get everything they need to operate as a magnet. So Ms. McManus, would you address that? Or I don't know if Ms. Gillis is on the call to address the funding, but I'm going to hand it off to her.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an issue. I haven't been here that long, but that I faced in the other district that I was in for 30 years, where magnets were funded, or you got grant funding, federal grant funds, and then you had to keep it going. So we're going to, and I don't know the larger scope of this, but if we create another magnet, we're going to have to create a sustainability plan as a district and redirect funds to make sure that it's sustainable. I mean, it would not make any sense for us to start a magnet that we can't invest in and sustain. And so that is something, and Andrea, I don't know if you do want to speak to this, but I feel like this is going to be where we have to prioritize. There's going to be startup costs for sure, but then how do we sustain that? But then we're going to have to look across the system for all the other magnets as well. Not about funding, but just about also what we talked about earlier. It's going to be really important that we take the pulse, and Homan talked about this, of getting the pulse of the students that live in Philo's boundary and their parents, which is for what exactly do they want, since they're going to have priority, even if it is a magnet. The within a mile, they have priority to be there. And so it's really important to get their voices as we make the final decisions. And to Board Member Jones's question earlier, we're going to do it immediately. We're going to take very quick action to get the input so we can move forward. As far as Nicolette, I'm not sure if you were on earlier, but there was a question around if this were to be a vocational, are we bound to the kind of the confines of what traditionally would be offered in a middle school related to CTE, or could we branch out and do some other innovative coursework? Will you respond to that? I just want to make sure some of the earlier things that I heard are addressed.
So with middle school, I'm sorry if there's an echo. The courses that are offered in CTE are more of an exploratory nature for students to learn about lots of different options, but they don't go very deep into the hands-on, just that's the curriculum that's provided. And so it gives them opportunities to learn about lots of different options. And then when they go into high school, they would explore it at a deeper level, more at the junior and senior year. And so we're kind of limited there, but we do want to find out from the students, is that what the students want? We do know that the surveys from staff, we want to hear more from the parents and students to make sure that we're offering what the students are interested in that area. But there aren't a lot of options as far as curriculum-wise for the vocation at middle school.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up, but that could just be my display. If is there any more discussion before we move to the action portion of this meeting?
Board member Charlie, you see my hand, Eunice Campbell?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
I just have one follow-up.
Sure.
I just think before decisions are made, we need to step back and look at the big picture. It seems like every time funding goes into a school is improved and money's put there, the children, even this is, and especially with the Philo here, that the current students, which are of the Hispanic population, this particular school seems to be moved. They're going to be moved to Hill, which is the older school, and if Philo becomes a residential school, then that's going to restrict a lot of them from coming back. So it just seems that when money is put in, new schools are built, there are our brown and our black kids seems to end up somewhere else except for where the money is about to be spent.
Okay. All right, we also have a hand up from Megan Gregory.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I also wanted to note that I was still a little bit concerned. I understand the time pressure and the need for middle school families to be able to plan for next year. But I am also concerned about the very limited input from families. You've acknowledged that it wasn't really sufficient to really determine the focus of a magnet program at Philo Hill. So I would also question whether it's sufficient to make decisions about the redistricting. I believe there was only 3 responses for the Haines population, and that was 16 parents from Philo Hill. So I have worked with Foresight Futures on the survey, both the pre-K survey that was done last year and then the student assignment one this year to engage Spanish-speaking families. So I've worked closely with them on that. I have a lot of thoughts about the survey content, the survey format, the outreach methods. I would be happy to talk with folks more at length about that, since I've had a chance to think about how it might be made maybe more culturally responsive. But just wanted to raise that as well, that I just still have a lot of concerns about moving forward, given the lack of the big picture, the lack of the metrics for moving towards more data-driven decisions, and then the lack of community input that we've been able to gather. So.
Could you speak to the community input that we did, the different meetings and forums that we offered?
Sure, absolutely. I'll be glad to. So for the community meetings, we had 2 formats. We had one at noon that was a virtual one, during the day, and then one in person that was late in the day at around 6 o'clock at a high school that was in the proximity, so it was in the area, less travel for folks to come. And so we had those two, and then we did online presentations for each of those areas that we were recommending, and we had those running at all time on our website with links and banners there. And then the feedback form was there. We mentioned it at each of those meetings. Please, if you have a chance, submit your feedback. We had translators at every one of those meetings, especially just to make sure if any parents showed up. Now in person, obviously, again, we're in a pandemic, so I'm not sure how safe folks felt traveling and being in crowds. We were prepared for that, social distancing and all that, but still, I get it. There, we had a good participation on our virtual meetings. Obviously, with Facebook and cable too, it's hard to say who was actually doing it, but we had good numbers there, according to our communications team. So that's how that was. And I would like to, if I may, just quickly speak to some of the numbers at Haines, because I've been tracking this for many years since the school was moved from the north to the south. So I can just tell you, just to give you an example of a 7th grade, for example. So out of the 287 residential 7th graders that are in Haines, right now residentially, 81 of them go to Haines. So we know that it's a concern for parents to be far away from their neighborhoods. The majority of them choice to Northwest, and Mineral Springs has quite a few of them. They because of the hardship on the parents to travel far away from them. So those numbers have been consistent since the move, and that's part of the recommendation. I totally get it that it would be ideal to hear directly from every parent. Absolutely. That's a valid point, but the numbers show that the majority of folks for years have not decided to travel across the county to come to Hillside for Haines, and they've opted to stay there and in large numbers. And so we're just letting folks be in their geographic area. I know there's some concerns about the accelerated, we can address those certainly. But we're not also taking Northwest out of it because they built communities over the years, and we got siblings following through. So they're still going to have the same choices in that area. So I hope I answered that question with some of the data that we've seen for a while.
Thank you. Ms. McManus, did you have anything you wanted to add?
So I did want to, and I don't know, Homan, if Mr. Kraft is going to be doing our survey, but if we have someone in the group that has had some expertise, Ms. Gregory, we'll reach out to you for some ideas if you've had some success with your surveying, Ms. Gregory. And I think, are we doing that through Mr. Kraft and his department? Okay. And then also, just one last thing, we're talking about two things here. We're talking about now, which you've explained, and we're talking about the future of our community and the decisions we want to make about integration. And I think earlier someone asked the question about, are we looking at the research? There's overwhelming evidence and research that integrated schools are better for students as far as outcomes. That's the research that is out there in the world of education and the public. And so I think as we move forward in general as a community, that is a big decision that's going to take, as Homan said, lots of conversations, data that we're receiving from the groups we've been working with, and future decisions. So it is about now and then. And we are keeping an eye very much on everything everyone's talking about as far as if you're putting money into a school and then you're sending kids away from that community, kids in that community need to get priority to be able to stay there if they choose to. And so those are all things we are considering and that we are thinking about throughout this entire process. So I just wanted to make those couple of comments, Ms. Crowley. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any more hands up, so we're going to go to the action item, which is to vote on this. And the recommendation, if you could put up the staff recommendation. is to consider the approval of the middle school redistricting recommendations. And I think they're going to bring that up here shortly. So you can see exactly what the recommendation is. Okay, so the recommendation is that the school renovation construction this is for Philo Hill, complete construction with students on campus and assign students in the proposed boundary to Haines Middle School. And then for the school model next steps, work with teachers and instructional staff to gather a list of possible programs, do a robust community survey, and propose programming based on results of the survey. So in this recommendation, is it to adopt any of these maps?
Yes, ma'am, if I may. So basically, we wanted to make sure that is what we're going to take to the full board. So basically, that's the call to action is, if there's going to be any changes, obviously, we need to do those before we go to the 26th to the full board to get the final call for action. So, but those were the recommendation changes. Initially, we had said it was going to be an arts program, and we were going to do construction, without the students on. So that was a change after the community feedback. So that is a change there. And then for Louisville, we're recommending to go with, now let me pull that one up.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, Mom, are we voting on all these?
We're basically voting, go ahead, Dion. Dion had her hands up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dion.
Oh, hold on, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I did just want to clarify though, Ms. Crowley, as of now, it appears as though on the choice committee, only yourself and Ms. Bramer are on the call. And so that's not a quorum.
Marilyn,
yeah, I'm
on my phone.
Oh, okay, great, okay.
Yeah, I'm on the phone because I couldn't get on the meeting, so.
Okay.
I apologize. I just wanted to make sure a quorum was on the call to even take action.
Yes, thank you for checking on that. Because I knew Board Member Jones had she had a schedule conflict, so. Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is what are we voting? Are we voting on this as a package? All the recommendations for Philo Hill and the boundary zones, as well as the new Louisville Middle, as well as the Haines?
Yes, ma'am. On the package, basically, for recommendation for Louisville to go with option 2, as it was presented. And so there's not a lot of changes other than we were trying to decide based on community feedback to go whether with option 1 or option 2. We're going to go with option 2. And then for Haines, we basically have the same recommendation as we had the previous presentation to the full board, that we're going to reassign residential students to Mineral Springs with them still having Northwest in their zone. And then for Philo, there was a change, obviously, because of the community feedback. Initially, we had said we were going to close it down for renovation construction. We're going to complete the construction with the students on campus. And so no changes to the Haines. That was already part of the previous recommendation there. And then the school model, we're not deciding on it right now. We're going to follow those next steps. So basically, the call is to agree on these so we can get a presentation together for the full board on the 26th for the call to action.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Board Member Crowley, can I ask one quick question? Because I'm not sure, I think I didn't get on until after this had been answered. But sure. Are all the Morgan students with the Louisville, the recommendation for the Louisville Middle School, all the Morgan students will be District 2 Clemens Middle? Is that correct, Haman?
Yes, ma'am. There's, yep. So in this recommendation, Southwest and Meadowlark will be going to Meadowlark. Sherwood and Jefferson will be going to Jefferson Middle. And Louisville and Vienna will be going to the new Louisville Middle School. And of course, Morgan would be Clemens. That's correct.
Okay, so Morgan Ward, South Fork, part of South Fork, I think, and then Clemens Elementary would all go to Clemens Middle, correct?
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't get on the meeting through until after you'd gone over there. So thank you. Okay, I'm sorry now, Board Member Crowley.
That's okay. So we need a motion from either, we need a motion from the committee to approve the Louisville option 2, the Haines residential reassigned to Mineral Springs, and the Philo Hill recommendation of completing construction with students on campus and do more exploration to the school program. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Bramer. With the second, is there any more discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? All right, I think we have approved the vote to move on to the next level it will be at the next board meeting, the next full board meeting. Okay. Thank you everybody for participating. Again, I appreciate you being nimble and changing your plans for today to be with us. It's important work that we still have to continue. And with that, we will adjourn. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Your School Channel, Cable 2.